everyone, Pushing Up Roses here, and today I'm going to be talking about games I go to help me manage my mental illness. I'm not going to go into a deep dive about all of my individual issues with the most detail, but I will say that for most of my life I've been struggling with depression, anxiety, eating disorders, and body dysmorphic disorder. I've had a variety of treatments over the years, therapy, long-term hospital visits, and psychiatric medicine, but in between those things it's so important that I have my own personal ways of coping using short-term management techniques. And obviously this is not something I can tell you how to do because everyone is going to be different, but maybe something I say in this video will encourage you to try something new or fun or comforting for yourself, whether you're managing a mental illness or just having a stressful day. The intent of self-care is not to cure your mental illness. None of these games will cure depression or anxiety, but most people who suffer with them have specific things that help them to simply get through the day. That isn't to say that people cannot overcome their obstacles or heal from some disorders. I've been recovered from bulimia for a few years now, but for people who have chronic, sometimes lifelong illnesses, it becomes necessary to find things to quell episodes, panic attacks, and emotional duress. I decided to make this video about video games because there are some that really do put me in a better headspace, mostly by reducing stress and providing me with some distraction. Also, this is not a ranked list. I don't have a big build-up or reveal for number one, since these are all just different games that help me in different ways. One is not necessarily better than the other, so I'm just going to rattle off 10 games in no particular order. Grim Fandango, developed by LucasArts in 1998, is one of my all-time favorite games. It's usually competing with the Dagger of Amon-Ra for the #1 spot, but more often than not, I cite it as the game I'm most fond of. And just the simple fact that it is one of my favorites makes it quintessential for self-care. I think the reason it works is the humor.
What's going on in that bottle? A tugboat? This happens to be a perfect scale replica of the SS Lumbago. I'm just having a little trouble getting the walking beam to fit in the neck here.
That's funny, because a lumbago is usually more of a problem in the lower back than the neck.
Yeah,
Nothing.
Grim Fandango is one of those titles that has very funny, very clever dialogue trees, and they never seem to drone on and on to the point of not wanting to listen. Every line entertains me. I even go through all of the unnecessary dialogue trees because of how amusing I think they are. It also helps that the voice acting is pretty consistent across the board. Because every character is so entertaining, I find that there isn't a lot of downtime for me. I never become disinterested or detached, so my thoughts don't really have a chance to wander. Character responses are usually on the terse side, but they still pack a punch, which is a style of writing I really dig. I'm obviously not telling you anything revolutionary here. Most people would say that humor is a very effective way to cope with stress, and the physical act of laughter lights up parts of your brain that can bring you happiness. It's a fantastic way to manage mood disorders like depression, so when I'm feeling particularly down, I pick up a game known for humor. For me, Grim works in multiple ways since I have a lot of nostalgia for it, but it's really the humor that changes my headspace for the better. Nothing makes me happier than hearing Tony Plana performing silly little poems as Manny Calavera.
Beauty around this? I am your failure. The end.
We hear you, Daddy.
My next choice is another comical title from LucasArts, The Curse of Monkey Island. I think all of the games in this series are funny in their own way, but the inclusion of voice acting really enhances the experience for me. So you know how something can be humorous that doesn't actually cause you to physically laugh? I feel that way about some of LucasArts' other titles, like Sam & Max Hit the Road. That game has more of a dry, sarcastic type of humor, and it's not that I don't get it, it's more that I'm just rolling my eyes at the jokes or laughing internally, as they say. This is not the case with Curse of Monkey Island. This game causes me to laugh out loud, and it has a very pure, silly sense of humor.
You've struck gold, boy.
I have?
Gold, gold, gold! Ha ha! Golden nuggets of chicken!
Oh,
The biology of laughing and humor is actually fascinating. Your frontal lobe processes the joke and determines whether you find it funny or not. Then the physical act of laughing sends an electrical charge down your cerebral cortex, which can bring feelings of joy, delight, and surprise. Studies have shown that you can even sometimes trick your brain into thinking you're in a happy mood by laughing or even just smiling. You may not want to, but if you can get yourself to laugh at something or smile at something, you may be able to soften your sadness for just a little while, and to have some relief, even just a little relief, even if you have to trick your brain into getting it, can change your entire day. I'm not saying that you should go around telling people to smile. That's fucking weird and annoying. Don't do that. But I am saying that if you want to give this a try, acting on your own volition without pressure from other people telling you to laugh or smile, then it is worth a shot. This game also has one of my favorite settings in any game ever, and that is Blood Island. Every screen in this section just makes me smile, so I don't even have to trick my brain for this to work. I just need to see Stan in this weird crypt, or Murray the demonic skull, or seriously just hear Guybrush talk, because his goofiness is so untainted by corruption.
What is it? Is that a good?
It is death.
Well, in the tarot, death just means change, right? I mean, it's nothing to get worried about, right?
Sure, whatever you say.
I'd like to switch gears for a bit and talk about a game that helps me deal with racing thoughts. I'm officially diagnosed with body dysmorphic disorder, or BDD, which is an illness that falls into the obsessive-compulsive spectrum, so I have some shared symptoms between BDD and OCD. When I start to experience obsessive-compulsive behaviors that won't stop, I pick up good old Quest for Glory 5, and yeah, I know, this is not the best Quest for Glory game. It's not the best game. It's hardly a good game, but I'm very attached to the fictional world of Silmaria. The music is also very calming and familiar, and it gives me a lot of things to do, providing distraction away from any impeding thoughts I wanted to get away from. Oh, I'm supposed to save a city as part of a competition to be the next king of Silmaria? Well, screw that! I'm gonna save all of my opponent's cities too, and sweep the competition because I'm amazing! Mwahaha! I like to play as a thief because I relish in stealing everyone's money and sneaking around like a cool person. I also have a fondness for Greek mythology, and this game is heavily inspired by it, and it feels like this very long, epic adventure as you work your way to the throne. Or should I say, grind your way to the throne. Just FYI, the grinding isn't great. Here I am doing unbelievable flying spin kicks over and over to up one of my stats. Yeah, I still love it. And if you're wondering if the busy work is too much or if I have issues stepping away from this game, I honestly don't. It does have a lot of quests, but it's also linear. It is not like a simulation game where you feel like you just can't walk away from what you're doing. That is a concern of mine with other games that have questing or grinding elements, but because Quest for Glory games are really a hybrid of different genres and they do have concrete endings, it never goes into unhealthy territory for me. I'm actually considering writing a comprehensive video on this game and calling it In Defense of Quest for Glory 5. Wait a second, is that the dancing baby animation?
Ooga chaka, ooga 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 chaka, ooga 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 chaka, ooga 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 chaka.
As I mentioned earlier, because I do experience obsessive-compulsive behavior, some games can become unhealthy for me because I'm unable to put them down. I don't know why, but I start to develop this desire to engage in never-ending chores. So I do want to be candid with you. Some games, depending on their mechanic and my headspace, genuinely fuck me up because I cannot stop, and it becomes a vice instead of a healthy distraction. And it's taking me some practice to really understand which games are actually going to help me. That all being said, I am cautiously putting Stardew Valley on my list. If you need shit to do, this gives it to you in spades, and it will keep you busy for as long as you want. I'll admit my first time with Stardew Valley teetered into the obsessive realm, but after subsequent playthroughs I actually got a lot better at using the game as a coping tool, and not just something that puts me in this weird trance-like state. I usually boot this up when I need more interaction than usual, like if my thoughts are really racing and I'm not functioning and I need a lot of hands-on engagement. Sometimes my compulsive behaviors get destructive and I'll pick at my cuticles or my face or my hair, so keeping my hands busy when I feel this way is important. And what's more relaxing than harvesting a farm or looking for someone to date and then marrying them? And then, you know what, it didn't work out, so then you're divorcing them, then erasing their memories because you totally regret it and you're a different person now, and this time you can make it work so you marry them again? Wait, what? There are a lot of different ways you can play Stardew Valley. You can be an adventurer and combat monsters, you can be a farmer, you can fish all day long, or you can do social stuff. Or everything. I did everything. It was that engaging to me. And though it's not a funny game, it does have all of these heartwarming moments that just feel nice. It's nice. Stardew Valley is nice. I do caution you if you have compulsive tendencies, but for some days it's super engrossing and can keep me away from harmful behaviors. Or maybe you don't want heartwarming, maybe you're not in the mood for that. Maybe you're having a life sucks and so do you kind of day and you need to exert that energy before it causes your brain to melt. I hear you loud and clear. Love ain't always the answer, and I don't always want fluff to help me cope. Sometimes I need Warcraft 2. I think this choice is pretty self-explanatory. Sometimes I need distraction in the form of destroying everything. This is another game that gives you very specific objectives, and I think that really helps me. Sometimes if I'm playing an open world game all willy-nilly, I get overwhelmed, especially if my OCD is in my goddamn face. But when I have a list of things to do in order to progress, I'm a very happy person. It gives me a sense of accomplishment in a way, and though this is also not what I would call a comedy game, it definitely has its cute moments.
Ew, that tickles.
I think a lot of strategy games can be really beneficial because it encourages you to think, create plans, and that stimulus is really, really good for you if you're feeling stuck or uninspired. Now, I am not always in the mood to think, I'll admit that. But I've learned over time that my mental illnesses are not created equal, and I will have different symptoms that require different forms of management. So when I do need to get out of a rut, or I need some structure, or I'm feeling angry and I need a harmless way to release energy, I pick up an RTS. My personal preference is Warcraft because I grew up on it, so like other titles mentioned here, I get an added bonus with the nostalgia attached to it. I'm also a fan of these Civilization games, but have the most experience with Civ 6. Unlike Warcraft, Civ is a turn-based style game, so if you're not in the mood to make quick decisions, this plays more like a board game like chess or Risk, where you can take your time with your turns. I like to play this game with a friend over a phone call because even though most of the time we're going to be just taking our turns, I find hearing a friendly voice, even sporadically over the span of the game, really helps my mood and concentration. I like games that are very goal-oriented, and I also like competing with people because, let's be honest, nothing is more important than winning. Like Warcraft and Quest for Glory, Civ does have an endpoint, so I'm not just going on forever and ever with no end in sight. Speaking of no end in sight, I put way too many hours into Final Fantasy VIII. And yes, I know, the love story is corny, the story in general is convoluted and forced, and of course there's this weird space scene, but I just can't help it. I love this game. The settings and music are big reasons why. Everywhere I go, I just feel totally comforted, like being wrapped in a big cuddly comforter. Look, I don't have much more to say about this. I wanted this section to be longer, but I got nothing. I don't know why it helps, it just does, so I'm not gonna question it. Sometimes you find something that just works, and you don't know why it does, but you don't always need to justify it with a reason. Final Fantasy VIII helps me with my depression, but I have no idea why, and I'm fine with it. So it's no secret that I'm a fan of all things related to murder mystery. If you're new here and you didn't know this, well then let me tell you about it. I love Agatha Christie, my favorite board game is Clue, Columbo is a God, Murder, She Wrote is my go-to binge series when I'm sick, and I adore murder mystery video games. The first mystery game I ever played was Eagle Eye Mysteries, and because it was a kid's game, it was very innocent. When I upgraded to more mature games, I started with the Dagger of Amon-Ra, thinking it would be all cartoony and funny and a magical ride of mystery and intrigue, but no. This game is full of ridiculous death scenes, and my poor little pea brain couldn't handle it, but for some reason I kept going back to it over the years, developing this strange on and off relationship. I didn't know if I wanted to commit, but I was continually intrigued by it. I just had to know what happened. I had to know why there was a dead body in a sarcophagus. And thus I finally beat it when I was a little older, and I've played it several times since then. It's just such a hilarious, weird, morbid game. I've never played anything like it. And this is another one of those instances where it mostly helps me because it fuels my nostalgia, or my feels, as you youngins say. I know there's nothing particularly helpful in just telling you, hey, I know what'll help you cope, try doing something you like, but it really does work. I often gravitate towards things I've historically liked or have a previous connection to because when I'm depressed, I'm just not in the mood for something I've never played. It feels that hopeless sometimes, like it's a complete waste of time to try something new. So I try to do things I absolutely 100% know I will like. I enjoy Dagger every time I play it. It makes me laugh. It makes me remember how ridiculously scared I was of it when I was young, and that in turn makes me laugh. In fact, I don't think I was even that young. When I was scared, I was like 12. I was like 12, you guys. That's not even that young, but I swear, I played this game and I was like, no, turn off the computer! But I digress. This game falls into one of my favorite genres across all mediums, murder mystery. And I know how difficult it is to do something you like when you're depressed. There's a chance that your most favorite things won't be effective in that moment, but there's also a chance that it could. And for me, the Dagger of Amon-Ra has a pretty good success rate. I also just like being in a museum setting. Why not? I'd welcome more games that took place in an amazing museum with killer porcupines. So we're now at the point where I've discussed a lot of games and the different ways they help my varying symptoms, so the rest of this video on these last two games will just be me giving you a few details about them and why I enjoy them. You can assume that these final entries fall into the realm of comfort that just help to brighten my mood. I'll start with Callahan's Crosstime Saloon, which is a brilliant adventure game based on the books by Spider Robinson. This is the first title developed by Legend Entertainment that I really got into. It has beautiful scrolling screens, multiple locations, puns, characters that were inspired by fairy tales and various myths, puns, decent voice acting, funny dialogue trees, and puzzles. And puns. I'm serious, you better like puns if you want to play this game. This is like a content warning at this point. There are a lot of puns.
What do you do with ha-ha beans?
We brew ha-ha.
Brew ha-ha? Ha-ha-ha.
As I've mentioned before in other videos, I think it's incredibly difficult to design truly funny games. There are only a few I would categorize as comedy, and Callahan's is one of those few. And even with its sharp, witty humor style, it still holds on to this very... how do I describe this feeling? The entire time I was playing this, it felt like I was sitting in front of a fire at a cozy inn with all of my closest friends nearby. Every environment is beautiful and bustling, and even in this monster-filled tavern, I felt at ease, because even they are friendly and inviting. In fact, a lot of the games I mention here have very comforting visuals, and that kind of sensory can have a very positive impact on your brain, especially if it's something you're already familiar with. The channel Satchbags Goods recently did a video on hygge, a Danish word for the concept of contentment, that discusses how video games use this idea to create comforting settings and designs that appeal to players. I think this concept holds hands with the idea of treating yourself and stimulating your senses with pleasant visuals, so do check that out for some extra insight. The last game I'd like to discuss is King's Quest VII, the very first big box PC game I bought with my own money. Gameplay is a little underwhelming, it doesn't play like any of the previous King's Quest games, and the animation is, you know, it's just a little bit, it's bad. It's bad. But the painterly backgrounds are stunning and colorful and are a pleasant treat for my eyes. Nostalgia is once again playing a big role here, but I also think that most people would find these environments really cool. This adventure game is a point and click, but I also think adventure games past that use the command prompt are a great way to reduce stress because it entails a lot of typing and reading in particular has been known to relax the mind. It might be a little different reading a screen versus reading the pages of a book, but there is a certain level of interaction in video games that appeal to different senses. The problem is, a lot of these early text command games are also really frustrating, so you gotta find one you're kind of familiar with, or one that doesn't make you want to claw your brain out. But even though people have their opinions on older text-based games, I recommend them all the same. And there are many different ways to manage your days, ooh, that rhymed, using different forms of entertainment. These are simply my preferences for video games that I know will help me during hard times. Some other things I enjoy beyond video games are sketch comedy videos, like those by Neil Cicierega. Neil has a very zany sense of humor, and his work has helped me through some very tough times. So if you're watching this, Neil, thank you for contributing to my self-care routine. I also like reading, taking bubble baths, watching funny movies, and listening to music. There's a lot of things you can try if you are not in the mood for video games. In fact, while I'm watching videos or playing games, I also practice some aromatherapy. Not like medicine. Not medicine. I don't think essential oils are a good alternative to psychiatric medicine, but certain smells do calm my senses. I keep a bag of coffee beans around because it's one of my favorite scents. And I love things that smell like vanilla and caramel corn, so I try to find lotions and body sprays that smell like those as well. When I finally started getting treated for body dysmorphic disorder, I had this hope that I could just cure it because it was so difficult. I just didn't want it anymore. When my therapist told me that BDD can be lifelong and is more on the chronic side, it kind of broke my heart a bit, knowing that I could never get to this unrealistic frame of mind that I so wanted. I'll never see myself the way that I want to, or the way that other people do. I can be okay with myself, I can get to a point of acceptance, but I can't completely erase my illnesses. So practicing management techniques that are short-term to help with the long-term treatment is imperative. It's frustrating and it feels unfair, but coming to the realization that there isn't going to be a cure helped me to figure out different ways to simply get through the day and make realistic improvements. And you know what? I have days where none of these games help me. Sometimes it's just a matter of letting those intense feelings pass and saying, you know what? It's okay that I stayed in bed today. It's okay that Grim Fandango didn't make me laugh today. It's okay that my favorite movie didn't make me feel better. I'll try again tomorrow. Maybe you're watching this video because this is your way of managing your symptoms, and if that's the case, I hope it helped, even just a little bit. Small successes are still successes. Let me know what games help you out, or anything you found success with really, and if you're interested, I put a lot of resources in the description that you may find worthwhile. I'm going to leave you with my favorite dialogue tree from Grim Fandango, The Conversation with Carla. Enjoy.
I myself never really cared for figs. I always like dates more. Or
Actually,
prunes.
figs are a
Don't you
personal
just
favorite.
love prunes? They have such a
Never
great
a big
texture.
fan of prunes.
They're all wrinkled up like my Grandma Hedwig's face. Oh, poor Grandma Hedwig. She was always forgetting
Hedwig,
things.
that's an interesting name.
I remember one time back when I was 6. Or maybe I was 7.
Ah, 6, the golden year.
No. I had to be 6 because
Probably
Mr.
you were
Rufus
7.
was still alive.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching this video. If you're interested in more, there's a couple relevant ones on the screen, and if you want to hear all of my mundane life updates, my social media is linked in the description. If you like my work, please do consider supporting it over on Patreon. Thanks again, and as always, I'll see you guys in the next one.